Ni hao, how you guys doing? I talk too fast, I don't know why. I hope today I'll try to talk a bit normal or a bit slower than I usually do. Anyway, today's case is about Jane Muthoni. Jane Muthoni attended Moi University for her education degree. She completed that in 1995 and she was posted to Bondo Secondary School, where she taught from 1995 to around 2003 when she was promoted to a deputy principal. She taught in Daragwa Girls. Oh, while she was a deputy principal and also a teacher, she was a teacher of history and CRE. So while she was also a deputy principal, she still taught CRE. And in 2003, she attended interviews for promotion and she was promoted to a principal. She became a principal at Fari Secondary School and she was also a principal at Ishashiri Secondary School up until this case happened. So moving back to her family life, Jane was married to Solomon Mbuthi. Mr. Solomon was also a principal. By 2001, both of them were looking for transfers so they could be close together as a family because they had 4 kids. Their oldest was June, they had twin sisters, and they had a boy. And so, as a young family, they were looking for transfers so they could be together, so they could be close together. And when Jane was transferred to Shashiri and Solomon was transferred to Kiiru Boys High School, they seemed to be fine with that and their family life was okay. The kids were in school. They were making good enough money, definitely being principals, both of them. And so, for the most part, this was a family that was doing quite well. This was until November of 2016 when Mr. Solomon suddenly disappeared off the face of the earth. So, what happened to Solomon? So, just to draw the picture for you of everything, it's on November the 13th. It's a Sunday evening. Solomon has been missing for a week. I don't know. Now that I know he was a principal and he was a teacher, I feel so awkward calling him Solomon. I feel like I'm supposed to call him Sir or Mr. something like that. So if I say Mr. Solomon, bear with me. So Mr. Solomon had been missing for a week at this point. It's November the 13th of 2016. Our family and friends had gathered, which is the norm for Africans when one is faced with tragedy. So her friends and family had gathered to pray with her for the safe return of her husband who had been missing for a week. So while she was in the house with the kids and the while she was in the house with the kids and the friends and family praying, her sister calls her. Her sister was coming to the house. And so she calls Jane and tells her, says, have you seen today's paper that was Sunday Nation? It was on a Sunday. So the sister asks her, have you seen today's paper? And Jane, of course, had not. And she says no. And so the sister said, I'm coming with the paper. And when the sister came with the paper, Jane saw in the paper that it had been written that the wife to the principal of Kiiru Boys High School had was the main suspect in his disappearance. So at this point, she was annoyed and she just thought it's the usual stuff, the media, people just publish and say anything without any proof. And so while they were still in the house praying and just keeping them company and consoling them, Jane gets a call from the police. And a few minutes later, another group of policemen arrive at her door and they tell her that she was needed by the DCI to go and record a statement about the disappearance of her husband. I mean, this is not so suspicious at this point to her because she had already seen in the paper and so she knew that they were coming for her, they were coming to question her and stuff like that. But she was not worried from what she says because she knew that she had not killed her husband and it was going to be okay, and she was just going to see the DCI just to give them more details and to record a statement. But when she leaves with the police, she was not taken to any DCI office, of course. She was taken to the police station and was arrested in suspicion of her husband's murder. So while at the police station, she's told that her husband's body had been found at Karakuta Coffee Farm in Juja. Her husband had been murdered and he had been found out in the field. Some sources say that his body was found floating in a dam, but all in all, it was in Karakuta Farm in Juja. And so at this point, she starts screaming and she's mourning the loss of her husband. But of course, since they suspected her as the killer, they don't see it as mourning, they see it as, putting up an act. So how does all this play out and how do we find ourselves at this point? This is Jane's side of the story. That's what happened. However, when two more suspects are arrested, I'm going to use their nicknames for the most part. Their names are Karis and Gikuyu. Karis is a nickname definitely, and Gikuyu was also a nickname for the other guy. I'm going to put their names there so you can see them. Anyway, so when Karis and Gikuyu are arrested, they give a totally different story of what happened and how Mr. Solomon disappeared and was eventually killed. So the whole plan begins in June of 2016. So in June, Karis is minding his own business. Gikuyu is also minding his own business. One was tout, the other one was jobless. Just normal guys for the most part, just normal hustlers. So Gikuyu and Karis are approached by one Mr. Njiru. So this is a third person in this case. His name is Mr. Njiru, who is also Madam Jane's alleged lover. So Jane is married to Solomon, but apparently she has this lover, Nelson Njiru, who recruits Karis and Gikuyu. So I hope you're still with me. So when these two are recruited, they're told that Madam Jane, who at the time was just referred to as Mwalimu, has a job for you guys. And so the job was to take out or to this lady who worked at an M-Pesa. So Miss Jane or Madam Jane, not Miss, she's married. So Madam Jane wanted them to kill this woman who worked at an M-Pesa, who she said was having an affair with her husband, Mr. Solomon. And so I don't know why, if Nelson is her lover, why he's here killing the husband's lover. But yeah, this lady worked at an M-Pesa, and so they have a meeting at Trishid Hotel that's in Kiiru, and then they go to where the M-Pesa shop was, where this girl worked, and they camp outside, and Miss Jane, I don't know, I keep calling her Miss, Madam Jane and Gikuyu, they get out and they go to the shop. They ask for soda and they take the soda, like just scouting the place and just getting to know the girl, because Gikuyu and Karis are going to be recruited to take her out. So they go, they ask for soda, they take their soda, and they come back to the car. So now Gikuyu and Karis have seen the woman they were supposed to kill. But there was one problem. This M-Pesa shop, or where this woman worked, was so close to a police station, and they thought it was risky to abduct her from there or to take her out, since it was close to a police station, there was a lot of people. And so this plan had to be abandoned. And Karis and Gikuyu, they just went about their business, but Madam Jane was not finished. A few weeks later, Karis and Gikuyu, they get a call from Mr. Njiru, the lover, and they say that Mwalimu had a job for them and it was not over. So this time, Mwalimu wanted her husband taken out. If they could not kill the lover, they were going to kill the husband. And Gikuyu and Karis, now the hired hitmen, they meet with Mwalimu and Njiru at Trishid Hotel again, and so they hold a meeting, they're discussing and planning how they were going to take out the husband now, because that was the plan now. So when they met, Mwalimu gives them 50,000 Kenyan shillings. This is given to Gikuyu and Karis, and I cannot imagine in 2016 for just a regular hustler, that must have been a lot of money for them. So they were going to take this money and they were going to take out this principal. And so they take the money. This was just a deposit to keep them interested and to just, for them not to opt out of the plan. And so they're given this money, they make a plan, but the plan was not for any time soon. And so this will take up to 5 months. So in November of 2016, that is when Gikuyu and Karis get the call that it was time to carry out the plan. And so they carry out another meeting definitely before anything begins. So the plan was Madam Jane was going to take Karis and Gikuyu. I think Njiru was also going to be in the car, and they were going to Kiriaini. Kiriaini is where Kiiru Boys High School is located at, where the husband was a principal. And so Jane was going to take them there. She was going to drive. And when they got there, she was going to give the husband a drug that was stupefying, like I want to call it like a laxative. No, let me not call it that. What's the difference between sedating and laxatives? I don't know. So yeah, she was going to give the husband a drug, what we call here mchele, and then Gikuyu and Karis were going to come in and finish the job, like strangle him to death. And so when the day comes, now it's on a Friday. It's on Friday the 4th. Yeah, it's the 4th of November 2016. It's a Friday evening. And then what's her name? It's a lot of people, I'm sorry. Madam Jane, Gikuyu, Karis, and Njiru, they meet at Ruiru, and Njiru had come with a car at Toyota Center. He had hired this car that was going to be used for the whole operation. And so at around 6 p.m., a few minutes before 6 p.m., Madam Jane and her hitmen, they leave Ruiru to go to Kiriaini, where the husband worked. And so when they get to Kiriaini, like the center, they leave Mr. Njiru there. Mr. Njiru is the lover. So they leave him there, and then Madam Jane and the two hitmen, Karis and Gikuyu, they proceed to Kiiru Boys High School. However, Karis and Gikuyu, they're seated in the back, and the windows are tinted, so it seems like Madam Jane is alone in the car. So when they get to the school gate, the watchman just checks, and it's the principal's wife, so he doesn't like check her car and stuff like that. She's the wife to the principal, and so he lets her in. But before she goes in, she tells the watchman that nitatoka in a few, you don't have to like let out the dogs, the security dogs, because I'll leave in a few. And so the watchman is okay. It's not the first time he's seeing her here, because she's the principal's wife. So she goes in, and that was about 10:30 p.m. by the way. When they left Ruiru at about 6 p.m., they got there at around 10:30 p.m. So Karis and Gikuyu are just chilling in the back, and when they get there, now Madam Muthoni is supposed to get out, go to the house, give the drug to the husband, and then come outside, and then she was going to call Gikuyu and Karis to go and finish the job. At around 12:30 a.m., that's like 2 hours later from when they arrived, the principal now, both of them are principals. Mr. Solomon calls the gate man, and he asks for milk because he's not feeling well. The watchman did not think much of it. He goes and gets milk for him, and then when he brings it out when he brings it over to the principal's house, he finds the wife sitting in her car that she came with. And so the wife talks to the watchman and asks the watchman to leave the milk, like, you don't have to go inside, just leave the milk with me. And the watchman just leaves. He did not think much of it, and he just left. However, Mr. Solomon was not so stupefied by the drug, so it was not going to work today. He was not like drugged enough for them to kill him. So Miss Jane decided that they were going to abandon the plan, and she gets out with the two thugs, the two hitmen, and she takes them to Othaya, which is in Nyeri, for them to board matatus and go back, because the plan was not going to work today. And so Madam Jane, I don't know why I keep calling her Miss, she remains with her husband. On the next day, they were going to leave because they were going to check out some plots. They wanted to buy land, so they were going to check out some plots at Uthiru, that's in Darogo, I think, around Juja, somewhere around there. So they were going to go there the next day. So for that night, that's on Friday evening, when the flood When the plan has failed, it's Friday evening. And so by there for her to go outside and take these guys to the matatu station so they can take matatus back to their place, she told the husband that she was going out to get some food, and so she went and took the men, and she actually came back with fries for the husband. So anyway, the guys have left. That's Friday evening. I'm sorry, I can't talk slowly. When I talk slowly, you can see how much I'm struggling. When I talk slow, I don't know, I just feel like words are not rolling out of my mouth. So anyway, I'm sorry, so please just bear with me and go with my pace. So on Saturday, Madam Jane and the husband, now Mr. Solomon, they were going to leave Kiiru Boys High School, which is in Kiriaini, and go to Ishashiri Secondary School, which is where Madam Jane was the principal, because they were going to see some plots on Sunday. So on Saturday in the evening, remember on Friday evening around 10:30 p.m. they've come, the plan has failed, the principal has called around 12:30 a.m. to ask for milk, and so they sleep. That's Friday. On Saturday they spend the day together at the husband's place, and at around 6 p.m. in the evening ish, they leave Kiiru Boys High School and they go to Ishashiri. So when they get there, the wife excuses herself and says that there was a parcel she was waiting for which has not arrived. This is on Saturday evening. So she leaves the husband at her place. Meaning Kamba. She leaves that's a tongue twister. She leaves the husband at her place and goes. Kumbe, when she goes, she did not go to pick a parcel, of course. She went all the way to Juja, not like Juja town, somewhere near Juja, and she was going to meet with another person who was going to sell her a better stupefying drug, the mchele, which they were supposed to put for their husband. So this is Saturday evening. So she goes, and when she was there, she called Caris, and Caris just arrived there when someone just came to the car and gave the woman something and left. So Caris, in his mind, he assumes it's the mchele, which they're supposed to use the stronger one. That Mr. Njiru, by the way, the other lover, had found this person that was going to give them this other drug. And so Madam Jane takes this new drug now that was going to be stronger. So now I'm using natural lighting juice, timu imepotea, and I can't wait until it comes back. So anyway, so they get this new drug, and Miss Jane, or Madam Jane, I don't know, I keep calling her that. Madam Jane goes back to the husband at Ishashiri. On the next day, which is Sunday, she comes back, and she came with her husband because they were supposed to go and see plots, which definitely that's not what they were going to do. By the time they're coming with the husband was already drugged, so he was not in his mind, and he was looking dizzy and drugged. You know how it goes. So she comes back with her husband, and they go to somewhere around Darugo, and Madam Jane calls Caris. Caris is one of the hitmen. Caris was the first one to arrive there. I guess she had called all of them. And so when she gets there, she tells Caris, okay, here, I brought him. Today he's drugged. He's, it's going to work today. But Caris hesitated, like, with killing him. He was not willing to kill him at this point. And so Madam Jane asks Caris in Swahili, are you scared, or like, are you a coward, something like that. And so Caris also asked her in return, like, just run over him with your car. Like, why are you making me kill him? You could as well just run over him with your car. So run him over with your car. So Madam Jane was angered by this, and she actually got inside the car and sped off. A few minutes later, she comes back, and she had called Gikuyu, and Gikuyu had said he's almost there, like he was coming. So Madam Jane decided to wait for Gikuyu. When Gikuyu came, he got in the car, and Madam Jane, so in the back it's Gikuyu and Caris, and in the front it's Madam Jane and the husband. And actually during this time when Madam Jane was talking to Caris and they were arguing about the whole running him over thing, the husband called the wife and told her that he was running late, like, let's hurry up and go back. Remember, this is Sunday and KCC is going to begin on Monday in the morning. So he was supposed to go and pick KCC papers, so he wanted to go back to his school so he could be able to go and pick the papers the next day. So the husband, however, was still dragged. So while saying this, he was still dragged, and this time it was going to work. So Gikuyu comes, he gets into the car, and they start driving. Now they're driving towards Karakuta Farm, which is in Kiambu County, still around Juja. So they drive off. While they were driving, it was silent in the car. No one was talking. No one said anything until they reached a point, and Madam Muthoni just said, "Ni hao." In English, that is to say, like, that's it. Like, this is the place. Like, this is where you're going to do it. And so Gikuyu just takes the rope that was in the car. Remember the first time on Friday evening when they went to Mr. Solomon's house, they were going to stupefy him, and they were going to strangle him with a rope. So the rope was still in the car. So Mr. Gikuyu takes the rope, and just he was seated behind Mr. Solomon. Why do I keep calling everyone Mr.? So Mr. Solomon is seated in the passenger seat. The wife is driving. Gikuyu is seated right behind the husband, and Karis is also in the car. And so Gikuyu just takes the rope and strangles him. They then take him out of the car. Now it's Gikuyu and Karis. They drag him like about 100 meters from where the car was, and it's like in a small thicket, like a small bush. They order him to sit down, and I guess at this point he was so stupefied, they probably made him sit down. They tied his hands using the rope, and they covered his body using like some something like some gunias that they had carried, some very dirty one, some gunny bags that they had, and they covered his body using them, like his head, his upper body, and his lower body, and they tied him to this. They had tied him to this tree while doing all of this. So I don't know why later on the body is found floating in a dam, if that's the case, according to some sources, or if he was found tied up to this tree. I couldn't confirm which one was the correct one. And so after this, Gikuyu and Karis are done. That's like 100 meters from where the car was. But when they come back to the road, Madam Muthoni was not there. She had left them there, and her phone was switched off. The phone they were using for communications during all this time was switched off. And so Gikuyu and Karis had no other option but to just walk. They walk back to Kiiru. They use a shortcut. They get to Kiiru, and everyone goes their way. Apparently, after this, none of them talked to the other. Everyone just went their way. When they tried to contact Madam Muthoni, because she was supposed to pay them an additional 300,000 after this was done, she was not picking her phone. Mr. Njiru also disappeared, the lover. Remember, he was not on this trip. He also disappeared and was nowhere to be found. So I guess failure to pay these guys, that's when everything came to be known. I think Stime Merudi, let me just check. Well, not yet. So they were not paid their dues after this. And so I guess that's when Karis confessed to the police. When Karis confesses to the police, it's a whole 10-page confession about the whole story, the whole plan, how they were supposed to kill Mr. Solomon's alleged lover. And when that could not work, the woman just decided to kill the husband. I also saw somewhere that Mr. Solomon had taken out a 10 million Kenyan shillings loan a few weeks before he disappeared. So I don't know if that was about that, or if they had problems in the marriage, or what could be the motive, or what could be the reason. Will I have to shout over that thing? I mean, I don't know. It's always something whenever I'm recording. So I hope you guys can still hear me. Bear with me, because I also don't know what's going on. I don't know why they just had to do that today. Anyway, so Karis confesses to the police that he was part of the plan. He tells the whole story, how he and Gikuyu were hired, and how they were given 50,000 Kenyan shillings. And 5 months later, they gave the husband this drug, and they killed him. So on November 13th, that's a week after Mr. Solomon had disappeared, that's when they arrest Madam Jane on suspicion that she was part of this plan to kill her husband. And in as much as she did not directly kill the husband, she had hired these people to kill the husband. And so Miss Muthoni is arrested, or Madam, I don't know why I can't say it. I don't know why. So Madam Muthoni is arrested, and during her hearing, like during the court hearing, is when she tells this story that no one knew about. She says that the husband had been killed by these cartels. So you remember when I told you both of them were looking for transfers, so their young family could be close together and easier to move around, like from each other's homes. So during this time, it said that the husband was introduced to this cartel of officials that deal with transfers and people that could help him get a transfer more quickly. And these guys were asking for 1 million Kenyan shillings. And of course, Jane and the husband thought, this was extreme, this was too much. And so they just decided to follow the right channel, and eventually they got their transfers. But these guys, that these cartels, kept on threatening them that they were going to take everything from them, everything they had gained, they were going to take it away from them. And these cartels ordered for him to be killed and framed the wife. So during that time, when the husband, so here's the story, here's the thing. This cartel had ordered for the husband to be kidnapped. He was kidnapped, and during this week, remember this other story by the hitman happens between 4th and 6th of November. But Madam Jane says she spoke to her husband on 8th of November. That's a few days after this other story. So when the husband did not show up to pick the exams on 7th, definitely it was a cause for alarm. They were looking for him, and he was reported missing. And the media actually went to the wife's school. She was also a principal, and she was talking to the media, and to quote what she said, quote, it's definitely a difficult time. I don't know if you want me to speak in Kikuyu or English. It's definitely hard for me, even as a mother, end quote. So yeah, the media went and talked to her. She was devastated, and she was looking for her husband. This is during the course of this week now on 7th, when the exams are supposed to begin, and the husband is missing. So on 8th, which is Tuesday, the hitmen, not the hitmen, the abductors or the kidnappers call this woman, and they tell her, we have your husband, to her husband, and they threatened that they were going to kill her if she reported this to the police. But she definitely reported this to the police. She told them that the abductors had called her, and it's this cartel that deals with transfers that had abducted the husband. And when she reported that they had called her, that is when they made this whole plan and hired this fake hitmen to say that they knew her and they had this plan with her, and that's how she was framed by this cartel of rich people, definitely, that were asking for money from her and her husband. And so that's why there's this whole story. She does not know these people. She was framed by this cartel that deals with transfers of teachers and principals, and they refused to give them 1 million Kenyan shillings. So yeah, that's her story during court. And then there's Kairis, who offered to confess for the lesser charge of manslaughter. He was later sentenced to 7 years. So now it's Madam Muthoni and Gikuyu, the other one. And by the way, Mr. Njiru, he disappeared. Apparently has never been found. The other lover, he disappeared, never been found, so he has never been prosecuted. So Madam Jane, during the court hearings, she's found guilty of murder. Her oldest daughter, June, who is currently around 23, 22, I guess 23, 24, 23, 22, she pleaded with the court to have mercy on her mother. She said that she also wanted justice for her dad, but not having both parents was definitely difficult for her and her siblings, and they were struggling with life. They were struggling to raise school fees. They were struggling since they did not have that love from the parents. So yeah, she pleaded with the court to have mercy on her mom, and she believed that her mom was innocent and she was framed and she did not kill her dad. However, the judge did not think the same. As Jane was sentenced to 30 years in prison, it was said that she was a vengeful woman who hired these people to kill the husband, since she believed he had an affair with this woman who worked at an M-Pesa, and that's why she killed the husband. So she was sentenced to 30 years. Currently she's still in prison, and from prison she has said that her husband's relatives, sorry, have taken everything away from her. They've like withdrawn money from her joint accounts with her husband, and her kids are struggling. And of course, everyone from the husband's family believes that she killed the husband out of, for revenge about this alleged affair that the husband had. I really tried to find out if this woman, the M-Pesa lady, if she was a witness at court. I couldn't find her statement or anything like that. But yeah, that's the story of a Kenyan school principal who is now a prisoner for 30 years. I think by now she's done around, how many years has she done up to now? Not 10 yet. So yeah, still a long way to go. It's honestly such a sad story. I feel bad for the kids just coming from this, we can say, well-off family, or a family that was just doing okay. They have to struggle like with everything just to have your mom accused of killing your dad. That's really hard. What do you guys think? Do you think she killed the husband? I've seen a lot of interviews that she has done from prison. She definitely doesn't tell this whole story with the hitman and the drug and her husband being strangled. So when you listen to her story, you actually believe that she was framed. So what do you guys think? If you've seen her interviews, do you still think she's innocent? Do you think that this story by Caris is actually the truth and she hired these guys to kill her husband?